as they were trying to figure out something. So I think there's a good set of pros and cons right there in that we could think about with the two summaries that we've done. That also just shows the playing that we've done and what tools that we're using. So let me pause before we go to another topic. Please let us know what you're hoping to hear. We see a set of good mornings and good afternoons, and I'm from Toronto's in Brazil, which is fantastic. I'm glad there are people out there.
Which is
But
fabulous.
we're guessing as to what it is you may want to hear, what you may want to talk about, and any ideas that you might have that you might share with your peers that are on this call and that might view it later. We are absolutely loving our ability to do that. But right now, we're just doing our thing and guessing what it is that you may want or are hoping to hear. So please let us know. Give us some guidance in the comments, please. Okay. So where have you been using AI to guide your projects? You mentioned a couple of things in the introduction. You were talking about the tools, Christina. What else are you doing?
I am loving the conversations that I'm having with ChatGPT and Bing Copilot. I think it is taking so much of what is at the back of your head and putting it into written form. So, for example, let me give you this. Like when I have been testing and experimenting about how to speak to difficult stakeholders or how to influence a particular set of stakeholders or how to collaborate better as a team. I always ask, what are some of the considerations that you, ChatGPT, Bing, whatever tool you're using, would say I need to bear in mind? What are some of the pitfalls that other projects have experienced? And of course, because these models are trained on so much publicly available information, it can really easily summarize that. And it can give you that, I guess, confidence in that whatever you are planning or whatever you are chatting about can be a lot more thought through. And you are considering all sorts of different angles. I love it because, a lot of the time, as you said, we're asked to put in plans and we're asked to put in communication strategies or, a backlog or a sprint together. And it has to be a quick turnaround. It has to be reviewed by lots of different stakeholders. And we don't necessarily have sometimes the leisure of time to do all the necessary due diligence. Or perhaps sometimes we just get a little bit ahead of ourselves and go, oh, I've done this before for a different company or for a different client or for a different project. I know what to do. It's kind of like, let's redo the same thing that we've done before. So I think doing some of the conversing with the tools just opens and broadens your perspective a little bit. And it goes, okay, if this is what you're doing, you may want to consider X, Y, Z. And then you go, oh, yeah, I didn't think of that. So let me put that into my plan. So I've been loving this. I've been loving how it opens my eyes to other options, other possibilities. I also use it for brainstorming. I love all the different ideas that it comes up with and activities that, I may not have done in the past with teams. So it just, I've been asking it, if you want to improve team communication, what are some of the activities or tools you may be using? Similarly for team feedback, what are some of the tools available at the moment that are free that I can use for getting that feedback or customer feedback when we're talking about involving that cross collaboration journey? And I suppose the other side that I thought would be interesting here to discuss with people that are joining us from all over the world, which is awesome to see, by the way. We've got USA, we've got UK, we've got Australia, we've got Canada. I mean, we've got a worldwide audience. India, Malaysia, which is fantastic. It's like, if you guys are already working in an agile environment, and perhaps some of those agile values are starting to erode, or there has been another conversation which I have been following about, is agile, turning now? Is it delivering value? Is it more useful just in software development versus broadly? I think it's restating, I don't know if restating is the right word, but reiterating and re-establishing the ways of working. And I feel that through the conversation, through the activities, through the brainstorming with ChatGPT, you can really narrow down what does that ways of working look like, and also use those tools to create really tailored learning programs, programs to remind us how do we collaborate as a team, programs to say, these are the mediums that we're using, and really reestablish that cadence, that culture within the company, and just remind us what that it's like. Because as we know, as we're going through the years, some of that starts to fall away and erode, and we kind of take it as a given, but it's not necessarily a given.
Yeah. We're getting some questions here, so I'm gonna change
Fantastic.
our focus to some of the questions. First, I assume I'm going to pronounce your name as Laura. Laura Zavala.
Laura,
Thank you for your question. I saw that you're from Mexico, so I'm presuming it's Laura. Do you think AI is confident enough to at least provide a list of tasks to accomplish certain features we could use to validate our initial set of tasks? I think if you provide detail and not a ton of detail, you get some really interesting results. So I have a prompt, and I'll put it in the comments here later, or after this is done, after we're done. That ultimately says, I'd like a preliminary set of features that are, standard for an agile environment, and a project that is from this industry, and I use a variable, so you don't have to copy the whole thing. So I put a little variable in there for industry, and the intent of the project is this, and you put an intent for the project, and in a simple sort of way, just to see what I get. I put in something that says, look, I'm running an agile project in a healthcare environment. Okay, so there's the industry. It's in healthcare. I'd like a base set of features, but features also tailored to the intent of this project, which is to streamline the check-in process at a hospital. I got a brilliant, and by the way, I also say, and please provide a set of questions that you might have as the engine, as the AI engine, okay, to help give me even a better list of potential features. And it's a fantastic prompt. In fact, I'm going to just jump out of here right now, copy this prompt, and I'll just plug it into the
chat.
Yeah, plug it back into the chat. See how this goes. How come I can't post comments? I'm having an issue posting comments. Oh, that's horrible. Anyhow, I'll put it in there when we're done. It's really simple. I can read it to you now, just so you get an idea of how simple it is. Please generate a list of standard features to be used in an agile project, and a series of questions I could place into a prompt to help me generate a starting point for a list of features in an agile project. The context for the project is, and then I have a thing to put in the industry. The intent of the project is, and then I have a thing for an intent. And I have the industry as healthcare, and the intent to streamline check-in at the hospital. I got a series of patient features, including patient registration, appointment scheduling, questions about optimizing the check-in process, insurance verification, queue management, wait times, patient communication, education, privacy and consent management, feedback, satisfaction surveys, and 5 questions that I could use to ultimately help it generate even more features. Really a great starting point. And again, going back to some of the things that you said, Christina, some dialogue. Where you say, okay, great, I can answer these additional questions. You'll
Yeah,
get an even
fantastic.
better list. It is a really quick, simple, powerful way to do that. I don't know if you have anything to add to that relative to AI being confident enough to provide the tasks.
Yeah, I was just going to say to Laura, it's a great first draft, and you should treat it as that. It's not the
Yeah.
absolute truth. It is not 100% what you're going to put in front of your stakeholders or your leadership, but it's an awesome first draft. And then the value, as Bob is saying, is in the dialogue, is in the continuation of refocusing that, or you then taking it and making it specific enough to your own scenario. Because, of course, the other flip side of this is, we're still cautious of sharing too much information on generative AI. And I can talk about myself here, even though there are different forms that you can fill in. And I know some enterprises have got enterprise agreements with OpenAI and so on. Some of that information and data, I guess it's a good idea to be on the cautious side. So then whatever you're prompting AI, you can be specific enough to quote industry, you can be specific enough to quote area and so on. But I wouldn't necessarily put the exact details of the project that you're working on. I wouldn't put the customers that you're working with. I wouldn't put any personal information or customer data or anything like that. So whilst it's a first draft, then I would take that and then make it specific to the scenario that you have.
Yeah. There's another question from Aaron. Hi, Aaron. Great to have you with us. If we ask AI via ChatGPT or similar questions, are the answers vetted by PMI or other governing project management bodies? The very simple answer to that is no, not at all. However, and this is one of the other things we wanted to talk about, is how do you frame prompts in a manner that's going to give you the best answer? Okay. I, often, and I didn't do it with the prompt that I just shared with you, but I have put in a prompt that'll say something along the lines, as a project manager, from the perspective of a project manager with over 20 years of experience.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're restricting the content that the AI can choose. Now, sometimes there's content and it can't identify whether it comes from an experienced project manager or not. But you have an interesting thing is you may want to say, Aaron, please only using references that are associated with the Project Management Institute or, people that have a project management certification by PMI. Please, give me a sample risk plan or whatever it is that you want.
Yes.
I don't know that that's an absolute guarantee that you're not going to get other things in there, but whenever you put in a prompt and you frame the kind of person or role you want the AI to embrace in order to give you your response, you will get better responses. But I can't say, it definitely is not being vetted, and there's no guarantees, but I think that's helpful.
That is a great point, Bob. I've used a very similar role expectation. So I've said, acting as a really experienced agile coach, give me X, Y, Z, which I think is great. In ChatGPT and in Bing Copilot, unfortunately, you don't get, sorry, I tell a lie. You do get some of the references. In Perplexity, if you haven't used Perplexity and you want to go and have a go at it, it will give you all of the different links to the references it has used in generating that response. So you can click on it and make sure that whatever you've given it as a task. So if can you just provide answers by people that are accredited by PMI, you can then go and make sure that is the case.
Yeah. I like Perplexity's referencing capability. It actually puts formalized footnotes when it has, sentences and things that are claimed, and you can say, I want to see where that particular item came from. Yeah, it's really powerful for that. Let's move on. Tim Scott, and this is probably going to be a question for you, though I'm going to add something to the front end of this, Christina. So Tim, we've had a great success in using AI to consolidate call center feedback. Excellent. And complaints into a summarized output that could be turned into a prioritized action list. Keen to hear how you have used AI to assist with developing change frameworks, particularly at a level that can be used across multiple role types and departments. You're the change gal between the two of us. More depth in that than I am. So I want you to ask that question, but I'm going to give you a minute to think about it. Because we're talking specifically about Agile, Tim and everybody, we are creating prompts and playing with prompts right now to do the same thing that you're talking about doing with feedback for some consolidated call center feedback. We're doing the same thing for the feedback you get in retrospectives in an agile manner. So particularly if you have a large number of people, you put that data in, and we're asking AI to look for trends or analogies or concepts of things where a weakness might appear, that sometimes when you're putting it together, you might have your own biases as to what it is you think is good and not good. So you have a tendency unconsciously to filter the input you get from people in a retrospective. So we're doing something similar to what you've done to consolidate call center feedback and complaints, but on the data and information we get on Agile retrospective. So we're hoping to, I don't have a prompt that I can share with you that I think is as good as I want it to be at the moment, but we're working on that as well. So, okay, let's switch to the other part of Tim's question on change frameworks. Christina, do you have
and I guess my question, Tim, is change frameworks to so I'm just rereading the question, so that can be used across multiple role types / departments. So you are, I would assume that you're going through a change management initiative and you're looking for a framework to guide that initiative, and how would AI can help? Well, if we are thinking about in the context of Agile and in the context of cross collaboration and stakeholder involvement, I think the power of AI comes through to being able to specifically say, what are the departments that you'd be looking to involve, or what are the different role types? And again, here you can be generic if we're talking about role types and departments. It doesn't have to be very specific. And ask it for particularly ways to engage with those departments, cross collaborate with the departments. Now, change management frameworks depends on the type of project that you would have undergoing. And as you know, there are all sorts of different methodologies here that you can use. One that I think, if you're also using Agile and you kind of want to involve change at the same time, I think it's it's tricky to go for a pure change management methodology to marry up with Agile, just because in the change management methodologies that we have, they are sort of targeted towards more longer term project based outcomes, and in Agile that doesn't mean it's not necessarily true, especially when we have to embed the outcome. But I would say go for a change management agnostic framework. So what do I mean by that? You can still embed the change, you can still realize the outcomes of the change, but you don't necessarily have to subscribe by a particular framework. Now, where the value of AI could also play to your advantage is that you can use it to scenario or build use cases of different frameworks. So say you wanted to use McKinsey's 7S framework, and you would give it your particular scenario, and you'd go, this is the outcome that we're seeking to achieve. Can you help me build out a change management framework based on McKinsey's 7S's that would realize this outcome in this sort of time frame? What would the change management plan would look like? And ChatGPT or Bing or Perplexity, whatever you're using, would spit out an initial draft. And then you can take that and see whether that's something viable, something that's achievable in the organization, or you could use a different framework. You can use ProSci and say, okay, based on this, now build me an iteration of ProSci so I can see the difference between the two. Gosh, you can even ask it to give you the differences between the two frameworks, right? In your particular context. So again,
there might be some interesting parallels here with Agile methodologies using Scrum versus Kanban as well. In terms of an approach for how you're going to go through this, you might find the same sort of thing, sort of tying this back to Agile. And Tim has put in a comment saying, "Hope you didn't." Sorry for the change focus, and I didn't mean to hijack the conversation. And thank you, Tim, for your consideration for that. We really want to answer what questions people have, so I'm really happy to do that. But yeah, I do want to pull it back here a little bit into the Agile context, and there are a couple of other questions on that. And Tim, you've given us some other clarifications, so we'll get back to you as we have time. Karen is asking, are there some generative AI tools apart from language prompts that can be integrated into the process? I don't know. I will be very, very honest with you. I haven't played with that. I don't know the answer to the question. How I would answer that question. I suspect yes, and the reason why I suspect yes is that more and more you can have AI generate diagrams and generate photos. And one of the things that I have thought of to play with, and this is bringing this back to me, is to have it propose some sort of screen design, even if the screen design comes back in text, sort of describing to you where things are. It could be a really interesting way, again, to get you started. So it'd also be interesting to see if you can compare some engineering diagrams or whatever. But I don't know the answer to that question. Christine, have you done anything other than language related items?
I haven't done anything apart from language related prompts. However, I am part of a newsletter, or I receive a newsletter that has the number of new AI tools per week or per day, and it's something ridiculous. I think it's per week. We're talking about the hundreds. So there's a new tool popping up every day. I would be surprised if there isn't a tool out there already. How well tested that tool is and how well integrated it is with existing systems and so on. I think we're still going through that process of embedding AI. And I heard a great comment the other day talking about generative AI and how we're using it. And they were talking about this term of we're having growing pains at the moment because, we're trying something. Oh, it doesn't work. And it probably is a little bit painful, but I'll try something else. And we're still pushing forward and we're progressing. But I thought that was a brilliant description of what we're going through at the moment. Anyway, back to the tools. I was recently on Atlassian's webpage and just checking some of their new tools that they're putting out. They have recently just integrated generative AI into some of their tool sets. So depending on what you're using in your organization, that may be available already. But again, it'll be very landscape and specific to your own contexts.
Yeah. Let me get back to Kishore is asking a question, and I think it's a really interesting question as well, is can AI help in setting up scope or scope creep? I shared a prompt earlier that I was able to read off, and I'll put into the comments when we're done for some reason from StreamYard, which is the tool we're using to produce this. I can't get that comment back and into LinkedIn for everybody, but I'll put it later. And I read out that prompt. That prompt ultimately gave some really good guidelines on the potential scope items that you would want to have if you
Yeah.
are streamlining the check-in process at a hospital. So the more you put the intent of the project in the industry, the better answer it's going to become. And I was really actually pretty impressed with the answer that it gave. And again, in that prompt, I asked for other questions. It would be to give us additional features, whether that's in an agile environment or a traditional, waterfall project environment. The same sort of prompt, as
Yeah.
requirements versus features, I think would work. You could also ask AI, I haven't done this, but you could also ask AI for additional areas of scope creep and see what kind of response that it gives you. I will say, in my experience, scope creep is a human exercise in that most scope, I mean, if you've got, a scope definition process and you're getting that approved, and then you've got a change management, that's project context change management, not organizational change management, right? You're going through that
Yeah.
process. Okay. So when someone has a scope change proposal, that you're reviewing it appropriately, getting sign off, Even in that environment where you're doing that diligently, scope creep can happen. And scope creep happens 95% of the time, in my experience, when you've got a well-meaning team member talking with a well-meaning stakeholder in an informal chat and saying, it would really be easier if this was part of it. And they go, oh, I think, and a well-meaning team member goes, that's a good idea. I think I could add that to the code. And it screws things up later, or people don't know it's there, or whatever. So I really find scope creep is a human exercise. I don't know that AI is going to necessarily help with that. But maybe someday, if not today, I haven't done a lot of this, is, you could take a set of code, you could put it in and put in the requirements. Say, is there code in here that doesn't match with the requirements? I guess I wouldn't be shocked if that's something that maybe you could even do now. But I haven't tried that. Second question from Kishore as well is, can it help estimate story and sprint size? I have actually tried that. I think it's and again, in the same thing, when I'm putting in a prompt like that, I said, what other questions would you want to ask? Or do you believe that
To estimate.
it would you to give me a better answer? And so I would definitely go through having what Christina's talked about very, very early on. Make this a conversation. And I think it could give you something that you can ultimately take a look at and say, okay, that makes sense. This is where their starting point is. So I think it'll give you a good starting point. Keep in mind, sprint size can also be a factor of the availability of the key people that you have, and for how long you have them. So if you can get them for a week or two, but then they're going to have to do some operational responsibilities. I may have different sprints going on with different business experts, giving them time to go to their operational jobs. And I may be designing sprints that way. So keep in mind, it's not just a matter of, here's the nature of what the sprints and sprint size can be. To that point, however, and again, the AI has asked me a number of questions about this, but if you've got a lot of features in an agile project, I've said, here this parameter, here's that parameter, here's the availability of some people, this is what senior managers want most, Please give me an initial prioritization of my feature list. And I get it. I get some rationale for why. And it's a great starting point, again, to send out to your key stakeholders and say, okay, rather than do something, random myself, or I come up with some of my own views as to where things should be there. So it's not necessarily directly answering Kishore's question about scope, but ultimately prioritization of scope can be a scope limiting thing. If you run out of money in an agile project, the features that drop off the end are the ones you don't do. So I think it's given me some really good answers associated with that as well.
Yeah. And I think going back to, if you give it a role, if you give it like focus it, narrow it down into a specific area of expertise, it'll give you better results than if you just go estimate the sprint size for this particular.
Yeah.
So, be specific with the prompt. And
Yeah.
there's some great frameworks there for prompting. We have a colleague, LinkedIn learning instructor, who has got lots of popular courses on generative AI. And Bob and I are using some of his frameworks to prompt, giving it a specific role, giving it a specific industry, giving it a specific size, and all of that. If you would like, we can put some of those details in the chat
Yeah.
below, so then
Yeah.
you guys can go ahead and I think that is one of the fundamentals of being able to use AI effectively, generative AI effectively, is, how do you prompt it? And if you're able to prompt it well and to ask your question well, then the results that you get are absolutely amazing.
Yeah. Alvin has put something out there. It's a question for all of us, I think. And that is, has anyone used MS Loop with Copilot embedded and found this app useful? Would you consider moving to this tool in the future? Wow. I haven't.
No, I hadn't either. And I just looked it up. It's a Microsoft Loop. It's a collaborative app for Microsoft 365. It looks cool. It says it enables you and your team to bring everything you need for your project together in one place and collaborate across apps and devices. I wonder, like, in some way, would that become obsolete with Copilot? If Copilot will be able um, to sync all of that into a single, chat. It'll look at your emails, it'll look into your diary, it'll look into all the different projects you have. But then I guess Copilot comes with a license. I'm not sure whether Microsoft Loop comes with a license or it's something that you can just bolt on top of what you already have. So great example. Thank you, Alvin, for sharing that with other people. And I'd be really interested to hear what others, the participants on here, have got to say about MS Loop.
Yeah, and if you're watching this on tape, please, and or on video after we're done, please add something into the comments so we can share that with everybody, or reach out to Christina and or I on LinkedIn. There are not a lot of Bob McGannons nor Christina.charenkovas on LinkedIn, so you can find us. We look kind of like this, like we look now.
We also have a
kind of question. That's
specific
right.
looks.
That's right. So please, we'll do this. So thank you, Alvin. It's a great question. It'll be interesting to see what happens with that. I hope we can get some dialogue going. Aaron, thank you very much. You have put in a prompt guide. Learningprompting.org, docs, basics, roles. Thank you. I'm going to give that a try.
Yeah.
Christina earlier mentioned there's a number of courses on LinkedIn Learning by Dave Burse, BIRSS, and they're really, really good. So I'm going to put that in the comments when we're done as well, as to say, if people are looking for different options, that's fantastic. Okay. Let me see. I saw another question pop up. Hello, Thaja. You're an engineering manager. Will there be difference in the output when sentiment is used in Agile AI? I mentioned earlier that we're collecting information from retrospectives, putting that in, asking AI to analyze this. And there's a good number of tools you can use to capture comments on retrospectives, and based on the language that's used or a direct question that are part of those tools, you can capture sentiment. So there are some really good options for that. And if you're capturing that in the information, that is going to be a fabulous thing to put into either, your own manual review of the input that you get in an Agile retrospective, or if you've got a lot of data to feed into, an AI tool, again, one that's not limiting you to 2,000 characters. And, you could use it as an export, some of the tools, and put it into an AI chat, and you get some interesting perspectives that way. So when you say, will there be a difference in the output? I think there is a difference in the output. Definitely when you have sentiment in there, again, implied from the language that's used, or as part of a specific question that you could ask when you're collecting information in a retrospective. So you can put the data that you receive in context. Okay, I'm going to another question here. Would like to discuss if we include AI as another participant who joins the events and builds up the context to refer to in progress? I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that comment. However, Christina and I are both been playing with Otter.ai and not goldfish.
And fireflies.
Fireflies. I know it's some little creature. I don't know why goldfish came into my mind. There probably is one called goldfish, called fireflies. And it's one of these, you activate it during a meeting. It takes notes. It does action items. And fireflies, actually, going back to the prior question that we were talking about with sentiment, the paid version of Fireflies actually has, the amount of dialogue that's come in with sentiment and what the sentiment of the dialogue seems to imply, as well as action items and a number of different things. So it's like a participant that's sort of giving you some background and interpretation of what it is that's going on. Is it perfect? No. Does it give you some things to, oh yeah, that's an action item, we got to make sure that's assigned or not? Absolutely. Relative to the sentiment, it's like, oh, that misinterpreted that. But there's a couple of instances where I've gone, gee, I didn't pick that up in the conversation as being a potentially negative sentiment. I want to go back and double check with that person to make sure it is. And I've had some really good dialogue with people thereafter. So, oh, great. You've got comments working, Christina. So I appreciate
I popped them in the comments quickly. Yeah.
You may want to put Dave. Why don't you put Dave Burse's name in there as well while we're thinking of it, because he's the one that's got a ton of classes in. And he's also available on AI on LinkedIn as well. Dave Burse. I'll get it in the comments. I'm not sure why I can't do this. It's telling me I just can't post comments. Well, that's kind of interesting. I don't know. I've got to fix something. Anyhow, we've got another 8 minutes left. So I'm going to just, I was just looking at what we had on our agenda. If there's any questions that we haven't addressed yet, I know I want to get back to Tim, who asked sort of a follow-on question on his change management. He's rolling out new software, a new education program, or some sort of new initiatives as the context to get to more people from a particular background, and he's wanting to get more people to participate. Sorry, I'm butchering this question, Tim. He's keen to assist teams to be more agile and how they manage these initiatives. So I don't know, Christina, if you can add anything to what you've said earlier relative to Tim's question.
Sorry, I was grabbing the
Dave Burse's thing. Sorry. The follow-on question from Tim. Where he's talking about he's trying to get people to be more agile in how they manage new initiatives and get them involved. And I mean, you were talking about creating some dialogue as a Scrum Master or whatever the case may be earlier. I think we probably have some overlap there.
And I think I've got a prompt that, Tim, you can take and adapt. And I was using this particular prompt to help me assist my team in cross-functional collaboration and teamwork. Now, you can take that and say, and I'll just copy and paste that prompt into the chat so you guys can have a look at what I've actually said. Hopefully that will come through. User hello. Yeah, so if you start from, let's imagine that you're highly experienced. I don't know why it's broken down into several different messages. Probably the length of the prompt has broken it down, unfortunately. Never mind. I would take that same prompt, Tim, and say that you're a highly experienced Agile coach with a reputation for helping people accelerate their Agile skill set, and then say, I want to do X, or I want you to help me. In your particular scenario, you were saying, I want you to help me get my teams to be more agile in how they manage these initiatives or how they manage initiatives. And then it gets even more specific. Ask me one question at a time and wait for my response before asking me the day. And once you have enough information, I want you to give me the advice on the areas I should improve. That's kind of asking the generative AI to get the information from you that it needs in order for it to build a fuller perspective, in order for it to build that fuller plan for you to then take away and put into practice. So why don't you give this one a go and let me know how it goes? I'd be keen to, we can brainstorm together and make it more specific to your specific scenario.
And I think when you take a look at the structure of Christina's chat there, or prompt there, I mean, it's really, really good, particularly with ask me one question at a time and ask for my response. Okay. And then once you have enough information, give me advice. Another addendum to a comment like that, that you could add is, I may not have answers. Please proceed anyway, or to the next question, or to give me a prompt. Okay. And I want to go back now. Kishore just asked the question, which LinkedIn course are you referring to?
Yes.
Dave Burst has a number of LinkedIn courses, and a number of courses on different aspects of AI. So if you're ultimately go in, use the prompt that Christina's put in for Dave Burst, you'll get a list of his courses, and then he's got 4 or 5 on AI, and they're all really good.
I've just
and in fact, I recognize some of Dave's structural recommendations in the prompt that Christina has put in with her own innovation.
His frameworks are just brilliant, and he the way he guides us as users of generative AI to be super specific. I think then your results, it's kind of like what you put in, you get out. So the more specific you are, and the more context you provide, the more specific your outcome will be.
Yeah. Tim has said he can't see the prompt. For those of you who cannot see the prompt,
I'll pop it in the chat afterwards.
Yeah, it'll be in the, okay. Yeah, it'll be in, it should appear in the comments underneath the initial entry for this LinkedIn live session that you ultimately had to approve and go click on. So it should be there. If not, please send a message. Please send a message to us on LinkedIn, and we can give you the prompt, and we can give you other information if for some reason you can't see it. I think you'll be able to see it in the comments section on LinkedIn after we're done. But again, if that doesn't work after we're done, or you're viewing this on video later and you haven't gotten this, please reach out to Christina or I on LinkedIn, and we'll make sure we get to you what it is that we need. So apologize that you can't see these. There's a delay between StreamYard, which is the tool that we're using, and LinkedIn. So, and sometimes that's 30 seconds. Sometimes it's a little more than that, but they should be there. They should be there. So we have another 2 minutes. Any quick questions? We're happy to answer them. I think we've covered everything that we've really wanted to cover. When I look back at the agenda, and again, you'll get a couple of prompts out of this. It is really good to use variables, and you could use more than one variable. I use in the prompt that you'll see from me that I put in there, I use square brackets, and then I use curly brackets, and I could use parentheses, and then below it you'll say, industry in square brackets equals, and then spill out what it is. Context in curly brackets, or purpose of the project in squirrely brackets equals, and you could put that in, so you don't have to embed things in new prompts all the time. You could use those variables, copy the same prompt, change the variables that are in it. And if you've got a longer prompt, like Christina shared with you, that's a really good way to do it, because you don't have to go in and edit it and do that sort of stuff. Good way to go forward. And by the way, keep your prompts that you use that are working in a spreadsheet, just copy and paste from them. If you're using multiple tools like we are, finding out where you put the prompt in which place that work best, you can lose track.
And let us know what you've been trying also. It will be awesome to hear from the community out there, to see what's working, what prompts you've tried, what scenarios, what was the output? Was it, good enough, or did you have to then completely scrap it and go to a different, or what tools are you using? So it will be awesome to hear that.
All right. Thank you, everybody. I hope you got a little something out of this. Let us know, putting other comments in, or send us notes about other topics you may want to look at, or whether we want to do a part 2 of this one. I suspect maybe that might be the case, to do this again. In that, we did get a lot of questions from a lot of different places and perspectives. So please give us some feedback as to what I can do, or what we can do, for future topics or areas that are of interest to you. So thank you all for joining us. That we're here live. Thank you for those who have watched us on video thereafter, and all the best. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Christina. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.